The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
Welcome to Let Yourself Bloom, the podcast where motherhood and ambition coexist beautifully. I'm your host, Jen Banks, and in each episode, we'll dive deep into the journey of being more than a mom. Here, we believe that you can love your children deeply and still have room to nurture your own dreams. Picture this, a life where you don't have to choose between career and family, where you can be inspired by stories of women who have boldly stepped into their dual roles. Together, we'll explore how to balance, grow, and thrive in every season of life. Our guests will share their personal stories of finding identity beyond motherhood, proving that you can hold both your family and your ambitions in your heart. We'll talk about the seasons of life, embracing our unique paths, and giving ourselves permission to bloom whenever we're ready. Whether you're a working mom of two or dreaming of a bigger family, whether you're a stay-at-home mom seeking more or a career-driven woman balancing the chaos, this podcast is for you. Listen in and let the stories, advice, and community support you in becoming the fullest version of yourself. Tune in, be inspired, and remember, you are worthy of the same love and care you give to others. Welcome to Let Yourself Bloom. Let's grow together. I am here today with Susan Hart. She proclaims that she is a mom, and I love that statement. It is so true. There are so many things that we can hold both, and sometimes we think of the all or nothing mentality, but we really can be both. So I love that you are owning that and proclaiming it, and I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. Before we begin our interview, or this is actually the first Bloom Stories podcast of the season, I'm so excited to offer these once a month. It'll be a guest sharing an uninterrupted story that will kind of debrief afterwards and reflect on the elements of your life that have brought you to this point. I have a question for you. I have this table topics deck, and I will just pull out a question and we will see what your answer is.
Hey.
The question says, what are your favorite kinds of books to read?
That is kind of a hard one for me. I have a degree in English, so I have done a lot of reading. Right now, my favorite is nonfiction. I just love absorbing information and learning everything I can on a variety of topics. Right now, currently, I'm learning a lot about real estate. So that's my current reading fetish, I guess.
I love that. You and I are very similar in that way. I love self-help books. I can't get enough, and I love to learn more. So my book coming out next month is a self-help, Let Yourself Bloom. So good. Okay, well, we are going to listen to Susan's story about being a mom and.
Great. I'm really excited to share with you my story today. I always wanted to be a mom, as long as I can remember. I am the third of 11 children, and my husband is the oldest of 6. So we got married thinking that we were going to have 8 kids. Obviously, our parents never had trouble having kids, so we assumed we'd be able to have kids whenever we wanted and as many as we wanted. But that was not the situation for us. So after a couple years of failed infertility treatments, we decided that we would try to adopt. So we were young college students and quite poor, but we saved and we got everything ready. We did interviews, we did background checks, we had all of our paperwork ready, and we learned that I was pregnant. So that was a great miracle. We were so excited. So our first child is a daughter, and she was born with a variety of special needs, which we didn't know about until she was born. So the first several years of her life were jam-packed with physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, vision therapy, and a whole slew of doctor and specialist appointments. So my life was really centered on her and revolved around giving her everything that she needed. The doctors told us that she would likely never walk or read. So I kind of made it my mission to prove them wrong. So by the time she was 2.5, she took her first steps. And by the time she started kindergarten, she was reading at a first grade level. And that was something that I took a lot of pride in. I was really excited about that success for her and for me. Then we have 3 precocious boys, and they are lively and fun and exciting. And I think I was so used to having my life filled with everything for my child from my daughter that I felt like I needed to keep doing that with my boys. So when my daughter turned 3, she started going to preschool a few days a week, and it was a special needs preschool. So she started getting a lot of her therapies at school, which freed up some of my time. So I started my second child in cello lessons when he was 4 years old. And it was intense. I would go with him to the lessons, and I would take notes and write down everything the teacher wanted us to do. And then we would practice together for an hour a day. And then we had our third child, and we did the same with him. So I was kind of stacking all of that on top of each other, hours of music practicing every day with the kids. And our daughter also played the violin, and she, her journey was a little bit different than theirs because it couldn't be quite as intense. But still, I was packing my life with a lot of kids stuff, a lot of music, and a lot of driving, and still appointments for my daughter. We also have a child with celiac disease, and so there was appointments for that and various other things for that as well. And then school brought around all of the other school activities and sports, and we had after school orchestra, and the kids were involved in music camps and festivals and competitions and student government and all of the things. So I felt like I wanted to give my kids every possible opportunity. So if there was something they wanted to do, then I said yes. And if there was something I felt that they needed to do, then I said, yes, you're doing this. And things got really hectic. When I was a first new mom, my mother-in-law said to me, "What are you doing for yourself?" And I thought, what do you mean, what am I doing for myself? I have a child. I'm a mom. That's what I do. And I think part of that was because my own mom had so many kids, and she was always busy with kids and with helping neighbors and being on the PTA. She didn't ever take time for herself. And my mother-in-law was much better at taking time for herself. And her family could tell if she hadn't gotten her daily swim in. They could tell, and they would say, "Mom, you need to go swim." But for me, that wasn't something I was used to. It's not something I ever thought about really, and I should have. So my mom even said to me several times, "I'm worried that you're burning out. I'm worried you're trying to do way too much, and your kids will be okay if you don't do so much. They'll be better off if you kind of pull back a little bit." But I didn't. We moved to a small town, and there weren't very many academic opportunities, and there weren't any orchestra opportunities. So we were driving an hour and a half each way for orchestra, sometimes 4 or 5 days a week. It was a lot. And finally, I had some breakthroughs. Two events happened that changed everything for me. First of all, this was 20 years into my parenting journey. My oldest son, my second child, did not get into the college that he wanted to. And that was a devastating blow for him and for me. I felt like we both had done everything we could and still didn't succeed. So he had a 3.9 GPA. He had the highest ACT score in the school. He was in student government. He was in sports. He was in theater. He was the head cellist in the top orchestra for youth in the state. We felt like we had set him up for great success. And so that was a huge blow. Then the second thing that happened was my youngest child, who is a violinist, came to me and said, "Mom, I don't want to do this anymore." And he was an exceptional musician. He had lessons from a very excellent teacher. But there was too much pressure, and he stopped loving it because it was just too much pressure. His teacher often talked about, these are the things you need to be doing now so that you're ready for a college scholarship. Well, my son was 11 years old at the time, and he's being, prepared to participate in really hard competitions and that sort of thing. And it was just too much. And at first I was really crushed because my husband and I had always felt like we wanted to give our kids music. We knew it would help them academically. We knew it would help them with discipline. We felt like it was a good thing for them to do. And that if we could get them to the point that they were proficient enough, they could choose if they wanted to study music in college or not. But they would have the choice. So these two experiences both kind of sent me reeling a little bit. I didn't know where to go from there. I felt like I had worked so hard to get my kids to be successful. And then we had these two experiences that were hard. So I thought a lot about it. And after the initial sting had worn off, I realized I was living through my kids. And I was taking credit for their successes, and I was taking blame for their shortcomings and their mistakes. And I was doing a real disservice to my family by doing that. I think my kids thought that you become a parent and then your life is your kids. And that's not the way it should be. So for me, that was a big wake-up call. I hadn't had my own personal goals in years because I felt like what I was giving my kids was the most important thing. But what I was giving them was stress. And I realized I don't want my kids to choose a path because they feel indebted to me because of what I have sacrificed for them. I want them to live their own life, make their own choices. So if my kids choose to be musicians, that's great. And if they don't choose to be musicians, that's great too. I want them to be happy and I want them to make their own choices. And I'm just realizing more and more that was not what I felt like I was doing was setting them up for success, and it wasn't. So things have changed and life has gotten much more pleasant for all of us. And I have started pursuing some of my goals and interests. And my kids are seeing that sometimes there are things that I have scheduled, and sometimes that means that I can't take them to their friend's house immediately and they're going to have to wait an hour till I'm available. And I still am there for their concerts and their games and all of the things, but I'm making time for me. And I was an empty shell before, and now I'm filling myself up again. And I love it. It's invigorating, it's exciting. And I am hoping that other moms can figure this out before they're 20 years in, that they can figure out that their kids can be successful and happy without the mom giving everything, every part of herself, and giving them that pressure. So for me, I think that's a lesson. Obviously, I think I'm a little more extreme than some people, but I think all moms could use a little more time to take care of yourself. And I think we hear a lot about self-care, and sometimes we think that's a bubble bath or indulging in watching your favorite show. But sometimes the self-care is filling yourself up with things that you really enjoy, things that spark your spirit. And whether that's getting a job outside of your home or starting a business or finding something educational that excites you, I think everyone needs something like that that can really ignite you and make you feel alive and like you are progressing, because life is about progressing, and our kids need to see us making changes and becoming better and progressing. So that's my story. I feel really passionate about helping moms find their identity and purpose beyond motherhood, because it's possible to have both. It's very possible to be a good mom and to have something else. So I've started a Facebook group, I'm a Mom and, that supports women in finding their and figuring out what it is that sparks you.
I love that so much. Your story is incredible, and I related to so many parts of it. I took 2 pages of notes. So we'll just kind of debrief the takeaways, and you embedded so many takeaways into that. And I love just hearing your message. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for articulating it so well.
Well, thank you for letting me.
Yes, you're welcome. My book is called Let Yourself Bloom, and I feel like that first word is just so key. Let yourself bloom. Allow. Give yourself permission. And as you mentioned, the awareness is the first piece, and it's most of the solution. As you become aware of what your circumstances are and the life that you want to create, you'll be much better equipped to do that. I love, too, how you said that as we get this and as we have these passions and interests, it'll fuel our fire. We'll be able to combat the burnout because we'll have something under us, driving us, filling us up, not just remaining in that empty shell, really just nurturing ourselves as we're nurturing our children. So that was fantastic. The best stories are moments of realization and transformation. And you hit it right on the head with your realization that you were living through your kids. And I love that you talked to both sides of that, because you were giving them so much. You were being a great mom, in an outsider's eye, but it was costing you yourself. And so I love that point to just, are you living through your kids, and maybe it's something else for you, but just getting that awareness in the area that maybe you're overextending or overcompensating for a certain other area. I feel like moms can relate to this too, because we're so proud of our children. We love them. We love seeing their accomplishments. And sometimes we take the ownership or we take the attachment of their dreams. And so I feel like once we can separate it, then we can get that ownership back to us and back to them, and almost kind of step back and see what they do, because we've heard the phrase helicopter parenting, and it almost seems like that. When you are too invested, you are too helpful, they don't get to learn those skills on their own. So I just love all the points that you brought up. And I hear women say too, like, oh, we need to work on your school project. It's not it's they're working on it. Yes, you can be there. You can be their cheerleader. You can help them through sticky spots, but it's not your project. It's their project.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me go to my other page of notes. Right at the beginning, you brought in that point, these expectations and just motherhood. You walk into this new role and there are so many expectations. There's so many examples that you've had in your life of women who are moms. And yeah, it's just interesting that we feel the need to meet those expectations. Once we can redefine them for ourselves, we'll know when we're being a good mom because we've defined it. It's not nebulous. It's not too far out of reach. It's something that we can then work on ourselves. Let's see. That poignant question, what are you doing for you? Yes, so true. I feel like, yes, moms are so good at giving to their kids and they have been for generations, but we need to, the pendulum swings both sides. We need to bring back a little bit more of that self-care into us and finding what truly lights up and is meaningful. Were there any other thoughts that you had towards your story? And how was it as you reflected on this story and putting it into words?
Oh, it was interesting reflecting, and I think it's also interesting the change in my kids since all of this. My daughter is now in college, and she is taking her time and deciding what she wants to do, but she's happy, and my oldest son is on a church mission for 2 years, and he thinks he wants to study music, but he's not sure. And he's starting to see some reasons maybe that he didn't get into that college. And he's starting to see benefits of him going to potentially to some other places. And for me as a mom, it's been helpful for me to step back and let my kids figure things out on their own a little bit and just let them come to me when they have questions instead of me trying to push them along and make too many decisions for them.
So true. I love that you circled back around. That's another element in storytelling. It's whatever questions you raise, you then answer. So without even realizing that, you did that in finishing up the story of your son and your children and seeing where they're at now. That's so fantastic. And with being a mom, I've seen how when you are empowered, your children are empowered. And so I can see that your children see this new version of you, or they see how life is different and they're taking back the ownership and they're figuring things out. So yeah, what a great gift to give to your children. We're hard on ourselves as moms, but really, both paths were good and they were needed at the time, and you've learned lessons along the way, and there's no shame in that. But now that your awareness is there, you're living life differently. And in my life, I feel like the thing that I do is I fill my life up to the brim, kind of as you were saying with your children, like you enrolled them in all of these different things and you felt like you needed to fill your life up with your boys after your daughter, having experienced that. And I feel that habit in myself. And I read the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and he talks about the word priority and how we've pluralized it into priorities. But I do kind of bounce around to a lot of different interests, and I felt guilty about that for a while, but he explained that is the way of the essentialist. Once you've explored all these areas, once you've done it a certain way, then you can understand what truly matters most and arrange your schedule to reflect that. So as I've explored all of these things, I used to be in 3 book clubs. I love all of these social activities. As I've explored them, now I'm starting to pare my life down into what truly matters most. So I'm in only 1 book club. I am only doing this, because my life was full to the brim, and I would see people 20 years older than me in their life. They were just running around like crazy. And I was thinking, I don't want to be that person in 20 years. So what steps can I make now to change that? And it's hard because it is a habit, or it's what you've always known. But just making those small steps and doing it along the way will create bigger results over time.
Yes, for sure.
Great. Well, this has been a fabulous conversation. I loved just hearing your story interrupted. That was one of my visions for this podcast, was just let's listen to these women's stories. Before we leave, we will have you share a Mom Squad secret with our community. What would you like to pass along today?
I think it's important to give yourself some time back by giving your family some of the responsibilities. One thing I feel like I have done really well as a mom is give my kids responsibilities. When they're 10 years old, they're doing their own laundry. They're, especially during the summers, they have a night that they plan and cook dinner. And when my 2 adult children left our home, they said they couldn't believe how many of their roommates and friends had no idea how to use a washing machine and couldn't cook simple foods. So I think that frees up some of your time as a mom, and it gives your kids valuable skills that they can take with them into the world that will be helpful for the rest of their lives.
Win-win. I love that so much. Yes, give yourself space by delegating. Love it. Okay, well, we will be in touch for sure. Our missions align so well. So I can't wait to work with you further. And I'm excited to share this with my listeners.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Let Yourself Bloom, where we embrace the beauty of balancing motherhood and ambition. I hope today's episode has inspired you to nurture your dreams while being the incredible mom that you are. Remember, it's not just about finding balance, it's about thriving in all aspects of your life. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with other amazing women. And if you're the kind of person who loves to watch podcasts, you can find this podcast on my YouTube channel at @LetYourselfBloom_ with Jen Banks, or on the Ride the Wave Media Podcast Network YouTube channel. Remember to stay connected with us on social media at @LetYourselfBloom_ with Jen Banks, and join our community to keep blooming together. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep growing, and let yourself bloom.